Okay, guys, I'm here in the Forest Park tennis courts near Woodhaven, Queens. This is Plexi Pave, not what they'll be using for the U.S. Open, in this old school green and red. But I want to talk some U.S. Open balls and definitely the surface as well there. The balls are what mainly have changed this year. I think the surface is pretty much going to be the same as we've had the last 2 years, which is the variable surface. It has a high angular large pieces of crystal sand underneath and the paint layers underneath, and then on the top layer is a smaller rounded softer type sand that's very slippery, so you can get the effects. If you spin it, it will grab the larger pieces underneath, and if you hit it flat, it will slide through. Not all of the surfaces at the US Open are going to be this exact type of court because it's just a lot of money. I'm pretty sure that's the reason. But Arthur Ashe, Louis Armstrong, Grandstand, the other TV courts such as 11 and 13. I actually got to see 11 and 13 close, and they definitely have this new type of variable surface sanding. You can tell by the top. You can just tell the extra paint layers with some of the sliding the players do. You can see the paint layer, and then you can also see the sanding. Off to the outer courts like 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, it's definitely a different kind of not as many layers of paint, I do not think, and also a different kind of sanding. And even the sanding is a little bit inconsistent because I was right in between court 6 and 7 yesterday, and 6 had like pockmark sanding. When the players skid, you can see the marks from the sneakers, and there's a pock marks, and then sometimes there's sliding marks, and they're consistent. And in the old days, like 2008, 2007, the U.S. Open had a lot of pock marks because it was a rounder sand, but it was getting grittier, but it was still a little bit faster. And then eventually the harder sand, it made more of a sliding mark. And that's more like court 6 had the pock marks, and court 7 had the sliding mark. So, and court 6 did look a little faster. Batalcha was getting the better of De Brito till she was injured by hitting quick, flat, low, ground strokes. So, for instance, court 6 will be a little quicker than court 7, but once you get to like 11, 13 and the big ones, they'll be a variable surface. They can go either way. For instance, I was watching some great backhand slices from Jaziri on the outer court, and it wasn't really staying that low because it was, even though it might be a little quicker from the old days, it's all kind of a consistent sanding throughout the whole paint layers, so it will bounce up a little higher. Whereas when I went to 11 and 13, Donald Jung, I think, was on 11 or 13, either one. I think it was 11. Some of his slices, and it wasn't nearly as good a slice as Jaziri, but it stayed so low. Townsend on 13, I think it was. Some of them were so low. So, on those courts, because of the softer sanding on the very top, it really can skid. And then at those same courts, like when I was watching, what was it? Court, again, I think it was 13. I'm getting these courts confused, but anyways, what's the courts with the better sanding? It was Olivetti, and his ball would, or actually he might have not been at that court, but whatever. On those courts, the ball also jumps. The ball jumps or it stays low because you have the high, very rough sanding underneath and then the very soft sanding on top. It's very different from some of the older school sand mixes. And also there's more paint layers. You have to have more paint layers to do that. So it's just a bigger process. Remember there's rubber granules in this DecoTurf. So it's all a big process, and I'm pretty sure the very outer courts just aren't getting the same treatment. I have a feeling I would be told by DecoTurf that's completely erroneous, and it might be, but it's what I can see. But we're going to go with the new, evolved, only kind like it in the world, variable surface of the DecoTurf, which we'll definitely see at Arthur Ashe and all the big courts. And with this kind of a surface, you have these balls. On the far right is 2011. Far in the middle is 2012 ball, and these are all from the Open, and this is the ones I just got from 2013. It's pretty easy to see that the 2013 is bigger. It's easily bigger. It's not even that close. I was shocked. I did not see this on the TV or even live. I did not notice it. I thought it was like the same size. I thought the 2012 was bigger than 2011, and I think it is, when you look at it now, slightly bigger, but it's close. 2012 and 2011 is very close. All the weights feel very similar. I know I'm not doing this, scientifically. The felts look pretty strong. In fact, 2012 felt looks a little stronger than the 2011, but the 2013 is a strong felt. It's much bigger. But the interesting part is it's much livelier. Now, I know these 2012 and 2011 are old, and I'm taking that into account as well. But the thing is, it's very lively. I remember just getting the 2012 and 2011 the first time, and it didn't bounce like this. I don't know if I can really show this too easily, but that's not really easy to see. But it just really jumps. And I was definitely seeing this in New Haven and now at the qualifying. This is a lively ball. What does that mean? Well, it's bigger, and with all that felt, it's still not. That's why it's still pretty slow through the air on ground strokes. But on big shots from the baseline, serving, things like that, it is going to jump. And what it's going to do is it's going to promote aggression. I think what they're going for here is they love the variable surface. It's worked great the last 2 years. It brings everybody into the picture, from Federer to Nadal. Everybody has a shot. But I think they want a little bit quicker point, a little bit more offense, just a tad more to keep it, not. I think maybe a lot of fans, maybe there's a lot of people weren't as happy with what happened at Wimbledon this year and how quick it was. But I think, look, if it gets too slow, that's just as bad as getting too quick for TV viewing purposes. You have to think about that. Sure, Pete Sampras, one shot and done, that was hurting the TV ratings. But when it's going on and on and on, yes, Nadal and Djokovic, amazing, but most people aren't amazing like that to watch, and it gets long and old, and it ruins a lot of things. If matches go too long, and then we have rain delays, things get longer and longer and longer. So I really do think they maybe wanted to have it just speed up just a bit. It's not going to do much because the ball still, another thing that happened in 2011, it's hard to show you here, but the shape of this ball, if I can get it in here. The 2011 ball has a little higher, a little bit, it's hard to explain, but it's more conducive to bounce, let's put it that way. 2012 has got the same kind of thing, so they've made it more conducive to bounce. So the fact is the ball is going to bounce. There are going to be a lot of rallies. There's a heavier felt than ever before. This felt in the 2013 might even be more heavy, but it's new, so I don't want to say that definitively. Can't really say any of this definitively. It's all speculation, but I'm trying my best to be as accurate as possible. But with the felt and now the size of it, which is just look at this 2012, and I don't know if you can tell by my hand. I can easily tell by my hand. This is a 2012 when I'm holding in my hand. Let me see if we can see it on the camera. This is the 2013. It feels bigger to me. It looks bigger. It's definitely bigger. Anyway, it's easily noticeably bigger. Okay. The bottom line is, away from the ball. Take a look at this guy finishing up before it gets too dark. I think, what's going to happen here is it's still going to be okay for Federer. It's going to help a guy like Nadal who likes a lively bounce. But the thing is, it's going to still be able to rally. It's going to go slower off the ground. But with the variable surface, as long as you're on one of those courts, you can still get a low slice, and the liveliness is for serving. So again, Nadal wouldn't be helped so much if he hasn't improved his game where he's so aggressive now. So Nadal's aggression is going to help a lot. But so you've got to be aggressive. One thing I noticed with Taylor Townsend was she was taking her time. She has an incredible all-around game, tons of variety. She uses more variety maybe than anybody else in the women's tour. It's amazing. But she was playing around a little bit too much with Simons, and Simons would blast it. You can't play around too much. That's what this ball's going to do. You've got to be somewhat aggressive. Nadal is now aggressive enough for that. He won't play around too much. So that will work for him. So it's going to help Federer in that way. The way it won't help a guy like Federer is the bouncing, the lively bounce, and the bigger ball going through the air. And it doesn't feel any heavier, by the way. I thought maybe it was heavier, but I felt it does not feel really much more heavier. It's mainly just the size of it. So the size of it's gotten bigger, so that's slower, but it's livelier now. It's just either more air in it, and it may not be the air. I think it could be the rubber. It's all about rubber these days. They have all different chemicals. They invent new stuff every year, new combinations, and this ball is very resilient. It's still, because it's not that, I've been able to squeeze it for a lively, for a new ball. It doesn't squeeze in as much as the other ones because those are dead now. But this still squeezes pretty good. You know, so it's not that hard. There's not that much air in it. It's mainly just, I think the rubber is very resilient. Reminds me of what Dunlop has done with the Slozenger. It's very resilient, but like this, like the Slozenger, but unlike the Slozenger, there's more air in it. So it's more lively. If it was like the Slozenger, it wouldn't bounce much on the hard court. And Slozenger here wouldn't bounce much. It's Slozenger's for the grass, it's for the hard court. Here it's going to be a nice bounce. It's still relatively softish, not real soft, but doesn't have too much air, but it's mainly the resilience of the rubber. So it's lively rubber now. It jumps. So it can, depending on the shot you hit, it will either jump up or slip through quick, fly through quick. The bottom line is aggression, and know what shots you're making and have purpose with every shot. You can't play around a lot. This is no time for dink and dunk, like you might do at Wimbledon. Can't do that here. So dink and dunkers is going to hurt them. Maybe volleyers somewhat, but you can get a lot of spin with this ball with the felt. So drop volleys and stuff can work well. And again, the slices on the variable courts will work really well too. So again, it all leads to all-around game, good for everyone. But the ones that, you've got to be pretty aggressive. You've got to be pretty aggressive. That's the wrap.